everyone. Hi, welcome to today's lecture. My name is Sabrina King. I'm the president of the Architecture Society at EPCC, and I'd like to thank everyone for joining. In the upcoming videos, we will have some interviews, which will include mine with Jordan Yamada, and I would love if you guys would tune in next week. And right now, we have the honor of having Michael Bluth here to join our lecture. He will be lecturing to us today, and without any further ado, let me pass it on to Professor Moreno, our faculty advisor.
Hello, everyone. Thank you once again for joining us. We are excited to have our second lecturer available for you all. We do have a special guest with us. He was a former student of EPCC. I met Jordan back in 2010 through 2013. I hope I got that right because my memory is, getting there.
Yes, sir.
But an excellent student. He went off to get his bachelor's at Texas Tech College of Architecture here at Texas Tech. Here in El Paso, and then later on got his master's through Lawrence Tech, an online university or an online program. And so with that, I'll pass it on to Michael so that he could give us his presentation. Thank you.
Welcome y'all for being here and joining us virtually. I know this is all new stuff for everyone, but it's become the norm for us. So hopefully you guys will bear with me. This is my first time doing something. Hopefully I don't make a fool out of myself. I'm a little nervous. First, I'm going to start by apologizing. This is actually the third time that I've been on the list for this lecture series. The first time, Mr. Moreno, as you know, I had chickenpox. This was last year. That would have actually been the 10th anniversary when I started spring semester of 2010 to spring semester 2020. Then I was rescheduled for later in the semester, and then COVID-19 got really bad. So here we are. We found a way to adapt. We're here. We're making it happen. So I'm going to try to make this presentation informative and unique while hitting on some key points that I feel I wish someone would have told me when I was in your shoes. And I'll try and monotone. But like I said, this is the first time. So I guess I'll just start with who am I? I have 8 years of construction experience prior to architecture school. And as Mr. I started at El Paso Community College from spring of 2010 to spring of 2013. Moved on to the Texas Tech College of Architecture. So graduated with honors in 2015. Did my Master of Architecture at Lawrence Tech College of Architecture and Design. Graduated with honors in 2018. So in professional practice, bachelor's, I was hired as the BIM. Moved my way up to becoming a project manager, and more recently, I moved over to 9 Degrees Architecture Design section here in El Paso, where I'm currently the senior manager. So in beginning, first I'll say I'm truly honored to be doing this to try and help everybody out with who's been where I was, but first and foremost, I'm nobody famous. Don't mean to disappoint anybody. I'm just you in about 10 years. So hope I can inspire you and get you to think progressively and to think maybe a little bit differently at this stage in your, to assist you with becoming successful. So my presentation basically will begin with why do we sign up for architecture? In being asked to do this presentation in this lecture, I asked myself, what is it that I have to offer? I mean, basically what I have to offer to everybody here is, what do you need to take from school to become successful when you come out of school, and what is architecture really like when you get there. Um, so everybody has probably been asked this question in intro or someplace throughout your educational venture, whether it's at the beginning or in the middle, wherever it was. But you have to ask yourself this question: why do you study architecture? Why did you choose architecture, or why did architecture choose you? Common reasons would be, your parents or your family members were architects or studied architecture at some point. You worked in construction, which is my personal story. Worked in construction, loved construction. You know, gives me a really good upper hand on how things work and how things go together, as far as with architecture, detail drawing, that kind of stuff. Some of you took courses in middle school or high school and you liked it, or you just have an appreciation for cool buildings like the one shown here below. The reason I selected these images, these are three recent world famous, renowned architects that have graced the stage that I'm on currently, not literally, but in this lecture series. Mr. Daniel Lichki and Tom Main and Billy Sean, there are three of the more recent big name architects that have been part of this lecture series. But for most of us as professionals locally, that's not really how it is all the time. Of course, we strive to create the coolest and wildest design that we can, but that's not the reality for most projects. So I'll just begin by stating that there are many types of projects that we encounter on a daily basis in the field in architecture, and of course on top is new construction, which is a new full building, site development. These are usually the more glamorous projects. You have decent budgets, you can put money into them. You can kind of do some cool stuff. And some projects are very much dictated by budget. That kind of limits what you can do. But you just what cool stuff you can. And I'm going down the list in kind of in order, but not necessarily in specific order. But there's renovations to existing facilities, and then there's spatial and feasibility studies and site studies, master plan, tenant improvements, 80 down to facility repairs and upgrades and fire sprinkler retrofits. Projects that we encounter on a daily from top to bottom. So the main point of my lecture is going to give you basically a couple of ideals or a few ideals on what's going to help you to succeed when you hit the real world, basically. And these general ideals, I'm hoping that everybody can take from architecture school at all levels. And they're very important, aside from your design ability. I mean, everybody that's made it through each level of architecture school has, an ability, a niche or something that they're very, very good at. But there are some other things that you need to take with you. And the first one is you need to have passion for what you're doing. Number two is you need to have a willingness to work together. And number three, you need to keep a positive attitude. Now, this may seem extremely simple, bare bones, and it actually is. But if you think about it, these are things that are vital. They're absolutely vital to becoming successful. So just breaking down each one. So ideal number one, you need to have a passion for what you do. And there's a famous quote that I have no idea who said it, but it's, if you love what you do, you'll never work another day in your life. And it's cliche, but it's somewhat true. So the main point in bringing this up is there are many parts, sectors, or specialties in the architecture profession. What you need to do is you need to find what you're good at and what makes you stand out. Is it graphic design? Is it 3D modeling? Is it rendering? Is it a specific software expertise? Is it your construction knowledge? What is it that you're really, really good at? And then that can help you determine what setting you want to work in. Do you want to be a construction manager? Do you want to get into architectural project management? Do you love drafting? Do you like working in InDesign and doing presentations and RFQs, that kind of stuff. The main point is to strive to excel at what you're good at and to be the best you. So in saying that, I basically just want to get across that there's nothing wrong with getting to where you're at or getting a little bit further and deciding, okay, well, now I've been exposed to part of this industry. I know what I don't want to do. I want to do this. And like I said, there are many parts and sectors and specialties. There's medical specialties. There's school specialties. There's, there's project managers. There's construction managers. There's, it's all the same. I mean, we're getting a foundation in our education, and we're going to take it to where we want to get to. So, number one principle to be successful is you have to have passion for what you're doing. You can't not be happy with what you're doing, or else you're not going to do it to your best extent. So, very basic, but it applies very much to our profession and professional world. Ideal number two is the willingness to work together. So, this is a huge factor in architecture, and hopefully everybody can take this away from this lecture, is to understand that architecture is a team sport. It doesn't lone designer of the project architecturally. You still have consultants. You still have electrical, mechanical, structural, engineering, civil, and other sectors, and entities that you need to coordinate with. So regardless of what your role is on the project, whether you're the lead designer, the project manager, or just a drafter doing, head and door details, head and jam details, which you will be, at some point in your career, you're still a vital part of the project. Everybody's a cog in the whole, moving machine that is architecture. The important thing to take from that is that the project's success and or failure depends on everyone's commitment and willingness to work together. Whether it's within your firm or your outside consultant. You need to be a team player. You need to listen. You need to direct. You need to be direct. There are all these qualities that you need to take from, to be able to communicate better. And then another important factor to this is that the project's success or failure defines the team's success or failure. So the project can either win together or it can die together. It can be a complete, crap show if there is no coordination on the project. And I've been on projects like that in the past. It's just a nightmare from start to finish. And then there's been projects that I've worked on that are, great for coordination purposes. Everything just falls into line, and it's rare, but it happens. So I guess the important thing to take from this is that without teamwork, the project is bound to fail in one way or another. Whether it's at the beginning, whether it's at the end, whether it's the construction, everybody just needs to be a team player and be willing to work together. I bring this up because a lot of my projects throughout undergrad and graduate school, actually every project in graduate school studio was a group project, which has very much prepared me for the professional world. And I hope, Mr. Moreno, that studio professors are still promoting group work. And I know everybody hates group work. There's always somebody lacking. There's always somebody that doesn't pull up their end of the bargain. But if you apply these factors, everybody needs to be able to pick up the other person, and that's just, it comes later on in your career. You learn to bring people up, with you to your level, or to reach out a hand when you're falling behind, and that's just what teamwork is. And it's very, very vital to the architecture profession. The ideal number 3 that I want to present is a positive attitude. So, like I mentioned previously, not all projects are aesthetically pleasing landmark projects. So it's just going to be this icon or this beacon on the hill. I've worked on projects that are just a storage building. It's freshening up and roofing the project. HVAC or lighting upgrades or services upgrades, door upgrades or change or upgrade projects, fire sprinkler retrofit projects, code review, change, life safety analysis. All of these are equal projects. And the important part to take from that is that the project process is the same, whether it's a new multi-million-dollar tower downtown or it's a sprinkler retrofit in an existing building. I mean, it doesn't change. Every single step that you're going to encounter is the same. So the important thing to do is to embrace every single challenge and analyze them, and to propose solutions. Not, you know, it's all in positive thinking. And more importantly, as a designer, make the most out of every design opportunity that. And you'll see what I'm talking about here when I share my, you know, a few examples that I've been, you know, fortunate in been a part of throughout my young career. So, without further ado, I'll go through some examples that I've been able to work on, and you know, kind of format it in that sense, and let you know what the challenges were and how they were encountered, and how this applies to the lecture at hand. So this is at New Mexico State University, the Zool Museum in Las Cruces, the main campus. It's an addition project. So there's a current alumni visitor center, and can everybody see my mouse moving?
Yeah, we can see that.
Okay, cool. So
Yes,
currently, this is the Alumni Visitor Center, and this is the main entrance to the building, the building in its previous state. So attached to this building, they had built a gallery space for a collection that has been donated to the university on one level or another. That was a lifelong collection of Mr. Herb Zool. So the previous condition was, you know, everybody would enter into the Alumni Visitor Center, and there's a table right here at the entrance, and you would tell the person at the table, are you going into the museum or the Alumni Center? And the curator for the museum had an office back here, you know, completely detached from the gallery space. So this project started wanting to be an extension of gallery space in the rear of the building. They wanted to add a certain amount of square footage just to the rear of the building. So no, you know, real design, the box attached to the back to extend, to increase the amount of display he can have in the facility. So in doing the site analysis, the team figured out that there's a 24-inch water main that doglegs and comes across right where they were proposing for this addition to occur. As a designer in myself, it took me to the opportunity to propose something as an alternative and put something on the front of the building, which in turn was space on the street. So the challenges for this project were that it had to adapt to the existing building as it's part of it, and the existing building was built, I believe, in the 20s or 30s. So it couldn't be, you know, unless you're Daniel Libeskind, this humongous shard sticking out into the earth. And add to that, the university has specific design standards that had to be adhered to. So there are certain elements that we had to take from the existing building and the university standards and apply it to this portion of the building, and you know, and just trying to do it in a more contemporary way. So this building, there were no windows allowed. The exhibits are UV sensitive, so the front doors enter into a vestibule, and there's very limited display there, aside from a digital display and a couple of items. And the windows are actually tinted because they can't have direct sunlight; it'll damage the exhibit. But in any case, what I ended up with was an addition to the front of the building that included gallery space, a kids' corner, the curator's office and restrooms, as well as its own centralized entrance, including a loading dock in the rear, plus an additional storage area for non-exhibit items. So, as you can see here, I have a picture of the existing facility, the Alumni Visitor Center, with that entrance that I mentioned before. So there are specific design elements such as this canopy, this trellis canopy, the original clay roof tile with the territorial style fascia So taking those design elements and applying them in a more contemporary way to the new portion, we created, essentially it is a box. It's a very boxy addition. However, the characteristics are taken from the fascia added here, the tile added here, and a full tower, which is a very distinctive characteristic at the NMSU campus on pretty much every building. And we weren't allowed to put windows, so did a little play with the facade and to make it look like it had windows. And then we actually utilized the same exact trellis at the entrance area and made it all accessible when it currently wasn't. And so now they have their own entrance. The second project that I'll present is Pete's Patio at University also. So this is within the Corbett Center Student Union building. This was really, let's see, what are our challenges? It's in kitchen to the House Grill eating area at New Mexico State University for students. So they added a bunch of equipment. I think one of them was like a round hibachi wok, and there's a buffet area. There's a bunch of cooking areas. They had to add a bunch of mechanical infrastructure to make all that work. So they did this exterior, which left just the mechanical space. So the biggest challenges on it was that this canopy, or this the whole courtyard, uncalculated space code-wise. So the original, and if I'm not, I think it was Antoine Creel, this was not occupied. All of the doors were pointed in the opposite. You know, everything exited to the courtyard, and this building actually, where this courtyard sits, is below grade. It's a whole level below grade. So every single exit from this courtyard has to go up a level. There are actually 3 exits. The only exit from this level is all the way in the front of the building, which is, I forget what the calculation was, but it's like over 400 feet of travel. So unacceptable, unusable code-wise. Also, there were no electrical, gas, water, or sewer. Actually, we did find one sewer area underground somewhere in the south area of this courtyard over here that we were able to tap to. Ran some cameras down there and see how everything was functioning, and sure enough, we were able to use it. There was also no access from the kitchen to serve food, liquor license, and this is innovative in a sense because it's the only university owned and operated full service alcoholic bar in this region, and it was kind of an idea that we were able to actually make happen. They already had a liquor license to serve alcohol, however, they had a food component as well. So the original concept was to add cooking equipment underneath the mechanical hood. The mechanical addition that they did, that this was within, was already tapped. There was no more, it couldn't add another hood. So that would require a whole other mechanical. If we decided on this idea that there was an area that was just to house chicken, that was a kitchen. So what we decided to do is to create a food pass-through. What you're looking at here, this was a storage closet, and this is the actual dining area. So we created an opening with a counter so that servers can come and don't have to go in and out of the kitchen. Here, they pick up the food, and then they take it out and serve it. So what we ended up with a hacienda restaurant outdoor dining experience where you can order alcohol. So in this image here, we have the existing overhang. So this is what it looked like previously. It was actually just one function, just a mechanical overhang. It had some access panels, 2 little pieces of roof with drainage, and that was it. There's brick pavers out here. It's a very nice courtyard, very, very nice courtyard, nice environment to be in, quaint. And this other image here just kind of shows it as well. And this is where I mentioned this level here. This is great. This exits to the parking lot here. So the building, this is all basically underground. And then this is exactly what it looked like when it was finished. We have fire rated curtains, fire sprinkler system within. We have built-in TV niches, TVs behind, a liquor display, and built-in seating along with the seating that you see here that we repurposed. And then this is what it looked like on opening day. You know, underneath this canopy, it all lights up and it's all RGBW. They can change the colors and it flashes and does whatever it wants to do. And then these, when it's open, they just light up into the socket, so they just become non-existent basically. The next project I'll talk about, currently under construction. This is the Appaloosa Office Complex Design Build Venture in partnership with the Paso Construction. Excuse me. We were brought a design challenge. Basically, an owner wanted a higher end look at his new facility that he was going to develop. However, he wanted as little, cost increases as he can. So, through coordination and teamwork, we developed this idea of utilizing a pre-engineered metal building structure. So this is your typical pre-engineered metal building. It's nothing fancy, spectacular, but they serve their function. You can get them as large as you need them. They're great for warehousing. They're great for a lot of uses. However, they're not typically very pretty. So the challenge is, first and foremost, the site orientation constraints. Our owner had very specific orientation requests. He wanted it to face a certain direction, be in a certain location. And this is actually the project that is currently under construction is going to be the first of three projects or three buildings on the same site. So like I said, he wanted a higher end look, but he wanted to see how we can utilize this, structure and make it, look more high end. So we're limited by the size and shape determined by the owner. So with pre-engineered metal building, you can do squares, you can do rectangles, you can do, you can offset them. I mean, there's a lot of things that you can do, but the shape itself is square, basically. So the request from the owner was that it was going to house his business office as well as a warehouse, and he wanted some leasable tenant spaces as well. And like I said, this is a design build venture. So what you're looking at here is the overall floor plan. So what we did is we created 4 leasable suites. We cut the building in half and cut these in quarters. And then this ended up being his space with his office, just general office, offices, restrooms, conference room, plus all the services. And then he also has his warehouse that he can house his equipment for his business in as well. So what we ended up with was, he gets half of the building and then he gets the opportunity to take over more if he wants to. But he does have the flexibility to have 4 leasable suites that also can function as an office in the front, warehouse in the back. So this is the project currently. It's under construction. The structure is all up, working on exterior, interior, site work. And I know it doesn't look like much right now, but eventually it's going to look just like the rendering that we showed the previous slide. And the fourth and final project that I'm going to discuss is a current project that's currently under construction as well. The purpose of the project is house a local nonprofit organization's behavioral health in Las Cruces to relocate their headquarters, basically. They had specific requirements as far as, this one took a lot of research in the sense of we had to look at how behavioral health patients interpret spaces. So some of them like light, some of them do not like light. there's this whole concept of when there's a window, somebody can see me or somebody can hear me. Another challenge on this project is that every single wall has to be acoustic rated so that you can't hear a conversation from one room to the next. One of the major challenges on this building is that it's on a residential street. Street here at the complex front is a residential street. Everything else on this street, there's a church up here and there's an empty lot. Everything across the street is all residential. So they're all homes. So the city wanted us to make sure that this building doesn't look like a monstrosity and to try and get characteristics similar to the first project that I showed to make it fit into its surroundings. So other challenges on this project, like I said, it has to fit in with the surrounding houses, which are very old New Mexico style houses. The client wanted the building to be as large as it possibly could. So we had specific ponding requirements, we had setback requirements, in addition to all of these other requirements. And, you know, to top that off, they have a very, very strict budget. What we had to do was to separate the building into two separate buildings, basically, to, you know, this line that you see here is a 2-hour separation that goes from floor all the way through the deck. And this structure itself is independent of this structure in the event of a fire, so that it can collapse separately and it won't collapse the other side. You know, through doing this, we were able to save the client a lot of money by eliminating a fire sprinkler system. And then another challenge was that the project is in the floodplain. It had the entire building footprint had to be raised between 3 and 4 feet. So aside from trying to make it not look monstrous, we had to raise it up 3 feet from street level. So this is basically what it looks like right now. Little bit to try and make a large building. This is actually a 10,000 square foot building, but it doesn't look like it when you pull up to it. It actually looks fairly small, and it kind of went along with the whole research that we did with behavioral health clients, because some rooms have windows and some don't. You know, there's like I mentioned, there's a big deal with behavioral health patients as far as if there's windows in the room, or, you know, some patients prefer it to see the daylight, some patients do not. So we had to give them a wide array of different spaces while still meeting their program requirements. You know, and like I mentioned, the street front elevation is on a residential street. So this 10,000 square foot building, now it doesn't look so big, and it fits in building style with the buildings that are across the street. It does fit, but we tapered and set the building back purposely so that it doesn't look like it does. You can see this sidewalk. This is all ADA compliant, so it's, you know, less than 2% slope. All leads up to the front of the building. So, you know, it is big and it is tall and it is above street level, but there's little cues here like it's not. So just to, you know, quickly wrap up what I had mentioned and how this ties back into the examples that I presented, you know, you really need to find a passion for what you do. I feel that where I'm at, I'm very passionate about and what I do on a daily basis. And I believe that I do take all my strongest assets and refine them and try to make myself better on it, you know, every day. Every single project is a team effort. So like I had mentioned, architecture is a team sport. The team defines the project success and or failure. You know, a successful project starts with a good team. You know, and a project that fails maybe didn't have a good team. You know, and then also to have a positive attitude. So I'm very passionate about my projects, no matter what their size, scope, scale are. And I encourage everybody to take that same ideal and to just be proud of everything you do. Your project may not have anything tangible. Like I mentioned, a fire sprinkler retrofit. There's nothing that you see. The sprinkler heads are even recessed. So, you know, it takes a lot of work. It takes about 6 months to do a project like that. You got an as-built. You got to, you know, call out for ceilings to be removed, ceiling devices, field surveys. There's a whole bunch of work to be done, and in the long run, you end up with nothing tangible, which can be frustrating. But what you have to do is have a positive attitude, work in a team, and be passionate about every project that you're working on, regardless of the scope, size, or scale. So with that wraps up my presentation.
Thank you, Michael. That was great. I appreciate your input. I'm going to go ahead and open it up to, yes, I'm going to go ahead and open it up to questions and answers if you don't mind.
No, I don't mind at all.
All right. So you can either jump in and say, I've got a couple of things to talk about, or do it in the chat, whichever way. If it comes out on the chat, I'll go ahead and read the question for you, Michael.
Yeah, that'd be grateful.
Okay, so anybody want to start off asking questions?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Yes, I'm Jesus Rios. I'm one of your students, Professor Moreno. So I appreciated your lecture a lot, and I really liked the back to what you said about learning or loving what you do and finding your strength. And I guess for me, it's the technical part with the floor plans and everything and CAD, and also renderings. So I was just going to ask you, like, I know there's a bunch of rendering software that we use as students, but with your firm, what do you guys use for renderings?
We use Revit mostly, and we use Lumion for rendering. It really depends on, the Lumion's a great tool. It's compatible with multiple software platforms, and it's very easy to use. And it really depends on what type of rendering we're doing. But Lumion is basically what we start with. If there's something else that we need to do, interiors are very hard with Lumion because you get very skewed, but there are a lot of filters and stuff that you can apply to it. So, Revit with Lumion is basically our go-to right now.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question here from Billy. How long did it take you from the moment you graduated from grad school to find an architecture job here in the local area?
So I started working when I finished my bachelor's at Texas Tech, and I worked full-time while I did my master's at Lawrence Tech, which is crazy, I'll tell you. We're talking, maybe 2 hours of sleep if you're lucky per night for long periods of time, and then get up and drive. My first job was actually in Las Cruces, so I would get up in the morning after a quick week, drive to Las Cruces and work all day, and then drive home, do school all day, or actually at some point, my studio courses with Lawrence Tech being in Southfield, Michigan, it's a full on-campus campus. So most of the studio times are for local time because you're in class with students that are in studio in person. So for us being here in mountain time, it was a huge challenge for me because everything was 2 hours earlier, and it was tough to get everybody to understand that deadlines were 2 hours earlier. I had 2 hours left to finish a project, and all of that. But so I worked through my master's, and I haven't stopped working in the industry since.
How many architecture firms have you been in?
2. My first firm was WDG Architects. I worked there from 2015 to 2018, and I've been at 9 Degrees from 18 to my current time.
Fantastic. Somebody needs to mute their screen. Isis asks, what is one of your favorite projects that you worked on?
I don't know. I get into my design work very, very much. I get engulfed into it. I think that probably the Mountain View Children's Center in Las Cruces. I had a substantial role in that project. I was the project manager for quite a while. I did leave that firm while that project was under construction, so I didn't get to see it out. but I was very passionate about that project from day one. Work, in a team, um, to develop the form, to develop the interiors. I put a lot of work into every single reception area, every single exam room. So I have a really, really close connection with that one. So probably that one. That was a $5.5 million new build. Another one probably would be that I got to work on in Doña Ana Community College, the main campus, entire campus renovation in 2 phases. So the new commons, all the new style that's in that building, I got to work on. Renovations to computer labs. We added new computer labs, new hallways, new restrooms. So that was really, really fun, and that was one of the first projects that I got to work on. From start to finish. Wasn't the first, but one of the first.
Okay. And Jesus asks, what would you recommend for an architecture student to do to gain more experience in the field?
In the field?
Yeah.
Intern.
Intern, exactly.
Intern. Go to all of your local architects. I know it's difficult right now. A lot of people are working remotely. Our industry really hasn't taken much of a hit. I mean, we're busier now than we were prior to COVID, probably, or as busy at least. And I know that a lot of people may not be welcoming to a new face, just coming knocking on the door or coming to the office, but get somebody's email. Talk to somebody, see if somebody can refer you to get into, maybe to volunteer. Come in a couple hours a day to see how the office runs. That kind of stuff. I had mentioned in my presentation to find your niche and what you're good at. What I did when I finished at EPCC is I spent my summer learning Revit, everything about Revit that I could learn, and that's become my specialty, and that's kind of what pushed me to get ahead, and that's kind of why I say to find your niche. What is it that you're really, really good at? If you have a extensive construction background, there's nothing wrong with going and doing your Master of Construction Management after you finish, and getting into construction management. There's nothing wrong with that. There's so many things that we can do with the foundation that you're starting yourselves with right now. The possibilities are just completely endless.
Christian asks, are there any kind of activities or skills I should practice that'll help me in my career? Kind of similar to what you just said, but
yeah, and just to reiterate what you're good at. The short answer is what you're good at. You don't want to work on something that you hate and get good at something that you hate, because that's what you're going to be doing the rest of your life. If maybe in your off time you create your own design project, which what would you like to do? Something in your backyard, something. One of my first graduate studios. Oh, geez, my light's getting dark here. One of my first graduate studios, the first portion of the project was to design a folly, which was kind of like a pavilion. And that in itself was kind of fun. And then we had to add a kinetic component to it. These are kind of things that you can do on your own, and you can actually build, your project. If you have a big enough backyard or a small portion of it, I would just say in answer to that question is find what you're good at, what you like, what you're passionate about, and work on that. Let that be your niche. Let that be what makes you stand out.
all right, thank you. Eduardo asks, in what ways do you think construction helped you before you got into architecture?
Tremendously. There are so many architects, and I won't, call anybody out or anything, but have never actually put hand to wood or hand to tool. But they take, architectural drafting standards books and study that, which there's nothing wrong with that. It's good to know what drafting standards are, but it's a whole different animal to know how that assembly actually goes together. That's the hugest benefit to being in construction. Previously is knowing how things go together, knowing what spaces look like and feel like. And then once you get into construction administration, you're less likely to get the wool pulled over your eyes by a contractor who's done this for 40 years because you know what he's talking about. There's just a lot of benefits to having a construction background.
Sabrina asks about interning. How would you go about finding those? I think you kind of answered that question, but can you reiterate?
Yeah, definitely. I think right now in the times of COVID, it's probably good to, well, networking is huge. You know this, Mr. Moreno. Networking is huge. Get to know as many people in the industry as you can. That turns into something later on. You know, if you follow these principles that I've presented in this lecture, and you've made a name for yourself as, say, somebody who does kick-ass rendering, you know, somewhere down the line that knows who you are may, you know, extend an offer to you or something like that. But for somebody, just anybody, I would say find out who your contacts are. Contact somebody. Send an email. Call firms. I mean, look up firms and say, hey, you know what? I'm a student. I'm at this level. I'm looking to intern. I'll do it for free if you want. Okay? But, you know, in all seriousness, that's how you get your name known. You get to know people. They give you a chance, even if it's for a summer. We've had you know, high school students come, you know, intern or, you know, kind of a, you know, paddling type of thing. And you know, I'm sure that every firm in town does things like that, especially somebody with an architecture background and who's passionate about it. And you may start as an intern, come back every summer till you graduate, and pretty much, you know, you're liked. Everybody knows what you can do. You're a big help in the office, and who knows, maybe you're offered a job permanently. What you've done.
Okay, thank you. So Chance wants to ask the question, but in person. So go ahead, Chance.
Yes, I am very interested on your last example with the health facility, and that you also stated that you had a difficult time trying to design the building to fit its surroundings in a residential area. So my question is, do you believe other architecture firms have that situation to fit a facility? Because I live on the west side of town of Paso, and there's a bunch of facilities that are like right in the center of residential home. The facility is a modern design. So is there like a situation that they try to develop, and what is the solution for it?
So a lot of cities and municipalities will have their own design standards, and they'll have districts, and they'll have overlay districts, and they'll have all of these specific design standards that us as designers have to follow. To what extent, that's up to the city. They're the ones that are actually going to approve our drawings. They're going to approve our designs. We have to present to boards. We have to present to, you know, there's a lot of presentations that we have to do, just like what you do in school. I mean, it's the same thing. You defend your design, that kind of stuff. But some are more stringent than others. I know for a fact that the Las Cruces specific area, you have to adhere or they won't approve it. Certain universities are the same way. If you work at UTEP, you have to follow that Bluth architecture style. If you do a project at NMSU, same thing. You have to follow that Spanish Renaissance style to one extent or another. Some, you know, when organization leaders kind of shift and change, you know, they get a little bit more flexible, or you get somebody that's a little bit more progressive. In your situation, I would imagine that area does not have any kind of restriction on design, nor do they have a board or a state what the design looks like, or where it is, or you know, that kind of stuff. So in answer to your question, yes, I know that every architect has to adhere to these types of things. However, sometimes you can get around it. Sometimes you just have to make the best out of what you've got, basically. Hopefully that answers the question.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
So David is asking actually a question that I was going to ask you. What was one of the biggest challenges during school and was it worth it?
I guess the biggest challenge is the one that I mentioned previously, and that was working full time and doing my entire master's degree. But if you're going to get more specific than that, I would say one of my biggest challenges was learning a new software, which in school we don't specifically learn it. We're just given the project and say, here, you're going to use this software, figure it out. So I guess, doing the master's while working is a huge challenge, and it took a lot of toll on my body and my family and everything. But I got through it, and yes, it was well worth it. The smaller scale learning the software, like I had mentioned, I had went, when I finished at EPCC, I took what I had learned in Studio 3 at that time, which I don't know if you remember, Mr. Moreno, was the skyscraper.
Yeah.
So we had developed that one as far as we could get, and it intrigued me. So my summer was spent daily working on that software and trying to figure out how to use it, how to manipulate it, how to use it for more than just placing standard objects into standard walls. And again, well worth it. Well worth every minute, every second. It's allowed me to propel to where I am in my career and to be desired. So.
The next question, I think, is more of a question. If you want to jump in, you can jump in. I think it's more of a professor's question here. Is this: if you get a master's in construction management with a bachelor's of architecture, and you still get your license? And the answer is yes, but you have to be careful with that because it's a bachelor's of architecture. The Texas Tech program here has a bachelor's of science in architecture, which still requires you to have a master's in architecture. And after that, you can get as many degrees as you want. Santiago Calatrava has a degree in civil engineering and a degree in anatomy. So never limit yourself to the kind of education that you get.
Correct.
I'm going to jump over to Valeria here. Asked, have you worked independently without a firm? If so, how was it like, and what did you
do? Yes and no. On a professional level, doing freelance rendering, modeling. I worked with some local real estate people who have a drawing, they have a proposal, they want to get a tenant in there, they want to see what the building's going to look like with the potential tenant sign. I think one of them was like Dunkin' Donuts, and another one was Papa Burgers, that kind of stuff. So basically modeling the building, putting that together. I actually also worked on a proposal for a residential project on my own. You're very limited working on your own, especially before you have your license. I'm still working on exams, so not quite registered yet, nor can I call myself an architect. So in answer to the question, no, not yes and no. I've done things freelance, but not outside the realm of what I can do without an architecture license.
Thank you, Michael. One last question here. Knowing what you know now, what advice would you give yourself if you could go back when you started at EPCC?
Make the most out of your education. Have fun with your design. I know, and again, Mr. Moreno, you could probably elaborate on this as well. All throughout school, through EPCC, through Tech, through Lawrence Tech, I've always been a realist in design and designing things that can actually be built. I think maybe my biggest regret is not having a little bit more fun with things that can't be built. That's always, I guess it's just the realist within myself that I have to make it logical. I have to make it something tangible, something that I can see would actually stand. So I guess if I could, go back and tell myself, I tell myself to be a little bit more open. Not that, I guess in speaking back to the lecture, opportunities for that type of design are few and far between locally. I know that a lot of you all will go on to work in, big cities, New York and, Chicago and, for these large firms and become a part of a cog in the wheel, I guess, on larger projects like this. But when you're in school, you're in a small group and you have a lot of design flexibility. So I guess, again, if I were to go and talk to myself back then, I'd tell myself to have a little more fun before you get to the real stuff. But I guess that's pretty much it.
All right. Thank you very much, Michael. I think everybody can unmute themselves and give a
Thank
nice.
you, Michael.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
you, everybody.